This is the Open University.
It's not sponsored by Skillshare. It's barely watched anywhere. But listen to the lecturer. And you may hear him blunder on truths louder, louder than thunder. Lecturer. Momus hasn't outgrown us, and we haven't outgrown him. So watch along, clap along, nod along with everything, but don't sing, don't sing.
Ballyhoo. It's very exciting. It's a very exciting time to be a songwriter, partly because we're menaced by this new development, this new technology of AI coming for our jobs just as it's come for so many others. One could be threatened by that. I'm personally excited by it because it is a new tool. It's the biggest development in my field of songwriting and music production since the arrival of MIDI sampling and sequencing in the 80s. For me, because I got the money a bit later, it was about 1990, I started recording at home with samples, sequencers and all the rest of it. It's also an album about K-pop, and last year, 2023, I spent a lot of time in Seoul, Korea, soaking up the atmosphere, and that to me is the most exciting city at the moment, and it's kind of the engine of the most interesting parts of world pop culture right now. I didn't really investigate K-pop. I kind of thought it was vulgar and trashy and noisy and brash and stuff, until my girlfriend Noemi started exposing me to especially the group New Jeans and copy groups like Elite as well, who are kind of menacing the New Jeans empire a little bit. From within the same label, there's lots of label disputes going on just now in K-pop. There's also AI disputes going on just now, so we really don't know what's going to happen with the future of copyright in AI tracks. And this is why it's, again, important to get in early, because all these websites that I'm using, suno.com, udio.com, might be out of business. You know, they might be menaced by the financial might and heft of the music industry and be forced out of business. So there's conflict in all these worlds, as there tends to be in high stakes businesses anyway. And I'm getting in there while I still can, before the enshittification of everything determines that we won't be able to make pop songs at home. It's a strange kind of market though. It's obviously this disruptive capitalism model where startups come in with a new idea, which is kind of exciting and hyped up. They get venture capital, they start their websites, which then attract users by being very appealing to use and giving you lots of free content and free fun. And then establishing a user base, probably two main rivals, one of them will probably dominate, become the YouTube of AI pop in the future. But it's more kind of specialized than something like YouTube, which is basically just television for the internet. AI, how many song producers are out there? How many people want to spend time producing music at home when they have music out there anyway? Or do they want to be consuming AI pop? I think they will be willy-nilly. And perhaps they won't even know in the future. This is Rick Beardo's take. They won't even particularly distinguish in the future between the real carpenters and the AI carpenters, or whatever it is. If you can, the real carpenters will probably license their name to an AI version of themselves. Something like that will be the financial model in the future. But for the time being, it's something that interests songwriters, obviously, and is exciting to us. In a sense, when you write songs with AI, it's not very different from relating to the kind of anon trad kind of neo-folk, industrial folk music, as Kraftwerk described pop music, elements of pop. And I've been thinking a lot about Scritti Politti in this record, because Scritti Politti, they started off refuseniks, squatters, London bohemians, very left-wing, with a mistrust of pop music and its power and what pop groups do to people's mentality and how they distract us from politics and all the rest of it. But then Green Go Outside gets more and more fascinated by pop itself. Again, also young Americans, there's the model, David Bowie being in America and just losing his identity because he's listening to the pop radio.
There's a fly floating around in my milk, and he's a foreign body in it, you see, and he's getting a lot of milk. It's kind of how I feel.
He's listening to, in the Cracked Actor documentary, You Make Me Feel Like a Natural Woman by Aretha Franklin, and he's kind of singing along with it. And of course, he's not a natural woman at all. He's not a black person, he's a white person, and he describes himself as a fly in the milk. You know, he's swimming around getting a lot of milk. And it's a nice inversion of the colors because he's a white fly in black milk. But I think it's fascinating. In a sense, it's not new. Like when you do a pastiche take or an artificial take on a traditional thing. I mean, when I first started making pop songs, there was an element of that in it. I think Green Go Outside took it further though, because he became fascinated. It was the 80s and it was postmodernism, and there was this fascination with surfaces and with Derrida and all the rest of it. I mean, Go Outside even sang about Jacques Derrida. And the idea of deconstructing pop from the inside and maybe passing off pastiches or exercises in pop writing as actual pop songs. So a rumination about the use of the word girl, a post-feminist use of the word girl in pop songs, becomes a song called The Word Girl, which becomes Scritti Politti's first hit.
A name for what you lose when it was never yours.
The new shiny, glossy kind of techno reggae Scritti Politti of the mid-80s, which was a big influence on me, I have to say. I really followed Green Go Outside, and I love this kind of tension in Scritti Politti between sweetness and sickness, and the idea of losing yourself in something like pop music, which is kind of impersonal, corporate, and evil in a sense, worldly evil, and being seduced willingly by it, and being finding yourself precisely by losing yourself. And that's a theme that'll return in some of these songs that I'm writing. I say I'm writing. In fact, most of them were written in the bath. I was in Paris in early July, throughout July, but a lot of these songs were written on July the 9th in the bath. I take these long baths when I'm in Paris in the evening. It's a kind of cocoon, a hot water cocoon for me to, because we live in a tiny studio flat, and it's my kind of me time. I go into the bath with my iPad, and then I'm on websites like Udio and Suno.com, putting in lyrics and asking, specifying songs with command lines, with prompt lines, usually saying, I want a sexy, funky K-pop ballad with a 70s influence. You can't specify artist names. They realize that would get them in copyright trouble. But you can sort of specify cleverly what kind of music you're talking about, and it's kind of usually a retro 70s with monophonic synths, but it's like contemporary K-pop. And that to me is it's a nice combination of my two areas of interest, which is the right now, the cutting edge, the new technology and the new pop of K-pop, and the then, which is the late 70s. And ironically, the most interesting producer, New Jeans' producer, Min Hee Jin, and she was born in 1979, so she's 44 years old now, and she's basically the songwriter and the producer, an ex-graphic designer as well. So she's graphic designed this group New Jeans, which has, 7 members or something. So, and their videos are very creative, and they have a softer, kind of more tasteful edge than some of the K-pop that preceded them, but they've been hugely successful in the last couple of years. I think they're strung up in some legal difficulties at the moment with the label, but it's precisely because this producer is trying to change the style of K-pop that I find it interesting. And it begins to approach some female singers in Japan that I used to work with, like Kihimi Kari, Poison Girlfriend, and Emi Nekozawa. So it brings out this side of me where I'm writing from a female perspective. It's mostly female. I don't specify gender actually when I do these prompts, but it's mostly giving me female K-pop. So I'm in the end duetting with non-existent persons, non-existent singers who come out of a kind of weird algorithmic stew, a kind of mulch of every pop song in a particular genre that the machine has heard inverted commas. It's mysterious to me, very mysterious, and there's a kind of magic in all truly creative moments. The magic of technology which can somehow surprise you. So I'm surprising myself. Now let's go, let's finally, after that preamble, go through the songs themselves. I'm going to give you a little blast of the source for each track. So the first track, This Abuse. We need the dancers too, of course.
Grandma taught me how to pray for people, especially people I don't like. Is anybody up there listening? I need to move on with my life. I thought I'd had enough of this abuse. I'm passing.
So these are my lyrics to music generated by Udio.com. The final lyrics, I mean, what I tend to do is put in kind of nonsense lyrics in the bath on my iPad. Then when I come to the song to actually rewriting the song, I'll keep the good bits. And then this one, I felt it didn't have enough reality in it. I was chatting online to somebody, a gay man online, and he was talking about not wanting to go on family holidays because that made him take drugs. And so a lot of the lyrics come from talking with him about his life and his real problems and his real kind of feelings. So that basically went into the song, and I thought it gave it because when you're writing songs, you're trying to balance all the time the kind of synthetic sheen, which is meaningless, of a machine composition with some real human experience. You've got to put that content in. Same with the music. I mean, I had this idea of songs in soft pencil, which was going to be that these compositions would be balanced by very kind of charcoaly soft techniques. So in the end, actually, they're a bit more sheeny, more polished than I expected they would be. But I'm always playing a real acoustic guitar bass, and I do it in this very distinctive way, which I've always done since I was a teenager. I put a microphone inside an acoustic guitar, detune the strings really low so they're really twangy and loose, and then play a bass line on the bottom two strings of the acoustic guitar. And it gives a beautiful kind of very full sound, but also very funky, and it's very hand played, and you can hear that it's not just a machine. So these have incredibly tight synth bass lines, usually these tracks, but I'm swapping in my hand played bass lines as well. So this one, it got a great reaction. Let's see some of the comments here. Yet again, Mr. Curry is out gorillaing the gorillas. Nice one, mate. This is superb, so delightful, so pop, yet so you. Ballyhoo sweep, love you, Paw Paw. Now that is a chorus, somebody says. Very interesting and sounds very different, but yet very Momus. So, I mean, these are great comments. I like the fact that people can hear a lot of me in there. It's arguable how much... I wouldn't have written a big chorus like this has. It's got darker lyrics than you'd expect. I thought I'd had enough of this abuse in the final song, actually, but it was kind of almost a masochistic line that I put in there to counterbalance the kind of sunny, happy, up kind of voice and the glossy production. So it's about abuse, it's about feeling hard done by and trampled down by normal people, by straight people and their expectations of what you should be like. The second track, Chromosomes.
Nobody told under the night, being torn in constant pain.
And it was based on this bring pie, which is a kind of internet forum term, like if someone flounces out of a forum in a temper, people say to them, when you come back, bring pie. It's based on this. Again, very strong melody line here. Dum, dum. Great chorus. And tragic, Roy Orbison level tragedy. Hold your breath, you will die. It will probably feel wild. It's almost like taking, you know, David Cassidy tracks or something, these big ballads people would do in the 70s, even Elvis would do in the 70s, you know, which were very full of self-pity and negative feelings, but also kind of glossy teenage pop feeling to them.
Copper files crawl into the night. After echoes in a trapezoid, faster than its own delight. Oh, oh, we run, we leave the zone, living for nothing. The chromosomes, and already our lives are all done.
See what some of the comments say on this. When the backlash starts, and the not so, this is one of the few negative comments. When the backlash starts, genuinely original recordings are going to have to declare that no AI was used to create this music. And then people came in and said, "Can you tell Nick from AI?" It is really hard. I could painstakingly go through these and say, well, which bits were me and which bits were the machine. But in the end, it gets blurred, and that's really fascinating because you do find your identity by losing your identity. That's the paradox. Oh, it's so good. Groovy. Yeah. Thickened unison octave vocals sound great. 47 seconds goes so hard. That's the going into the chorus. Oh, oh, oh. Who is that fine thing? Referring to my girlfriend there, and someone says, that's Nick. So yeah, this one I really like. There's something resonant and tragic about it, you know, that I really like. And the lyric is actually using a lot of the nonsense lyrics that I fed in sitting in the bath. But then I kind of feel like you don't even know what's in your subconscious when you're writing a song, and then sort of even doggerel and nonsense lyrics becomes very meaningful. So this thing about chromosomes is really about, you know, me at the age I am now. I'm obviously not going to have children in my 60s. Well, I say obviously, if I were Mick Jagger, I'd still be having children. But the sense that we've been tricked, you know, that we just exist to make children, essentially, to pass on our chromosomes through DNA. And there's that slight bittersweet feeling if you haven't done that, you know, that you're the end of the family line, as Morrissey put it. Again, a bit like a gay man's theme, actually, living for nothing but chromosomes. It's kind of a condemnation of normcore. And that was mostly, a lot of the video for that was just, well, there's Noemi dancing back in Paris, juxtaposed with bits of me in various Berlin art gallery shows, which I've been trying to see, as well as do all this work. Asylum was the next track.
Didn't know what to do, so I got in my car and drove like hell. And now the kings of Norway are hard on my trail. I've got their grail.
And that was based on a track I did on the 19th of July in the bath, which I called Window Shopping, because it sounds it's got those chords that the Window Shopping track from Sun Butler had. Goes a little bit like this. So that's an instrumental, actually. I don't think I did any lyrics for that. And in Asylum, it becomes a song about asylum seekers, essentially. But it only became that very late on in the composition, because it was really just about wanting to get away from where you are. And then it was going to be something about I need a mental asylum or something. And then the word asylum suddenly started flashing like a police car light, saying, this is a buzzword, this is a word that's very key to our times. Asylum seekers have become part of a culture war against cosmopolitanism, against immigration, against foreigners and foreignness, against the global order that we knew in the globalist times of the 90s. You just have to say the word asylum over and over again in the chorus, and you've got, you hit one of the major themes of our time. And then using the imagery I found in some old Indian public information films from the 60s, imagery of people taking boats and drowning and trying to get from A to B and failing, becomes very resonant in that context. So somehow you just put things together in a fairly intuitive way, and you hit these themes. This one, I think it's probably been the most popular in terms of the reaction. So some of the comments to this one reminds me of Graham Cartner and Jack Stauber. Love it, though. I don't know who these people are. I should go and listen to a totally unique Momus Blast. Love the direction this album's taking. If this is AI-empowered Momus, let's have way more of that. Though frankly, if you didn't know, you wouldn't tell. This sounds far more like Momus than it sounds like anyone else's AI experiments. Again, people saying it just, because as soon as my voice goes on something, it becomes one of my songs, essentially. And it's interesting that I've chosen very funky up-tempo kind of songs, a lot of them very sexy, funky songs. But then if I sing them in my soft, slightly apprehensive tone, it totally changes the meaning. It gives it a much more melancholy and even schizoid kind of feeling. I often think my songs have a schizoid 60s feeling of spy themes, John Barry. No matter what I do, I can't help adding elements to the arrangement and a kind of tone in my voice that's kind of, it's really hard to define, but it's a kind of detached, apprehensive, scared, nervous feeling that comes in like a Cold War feeling, because I'm a child of the Cold War. There's even a reference to the Cuban Missile Crisis in one of these songs as well, which I was too young to remember, but I did live through in 1962. The next song was called Glassy Menageries. This is based on a track called, well, it's based on my song. This is where I started coming full circle and putting my own songs into Suno to ask it to remake them into new songs. So my song Life After 60, all my own work from my own memory, as Dick Van Dyke sings, eventually becomes a new song of mine, but it's Sunny days, here to stay. This is all AI generated lyrics.
In Berlin, I made my cabaret. New York tried its best to make me gay. Buenos Aires saw me scribbling, writing porn and soaking gin. Polish in Miami Grey Cafe.
But behind all that, there's my song, my arrangements you can hear there for Life After 60, but also there's like a circle of fifths, which is a very characteristic classic Momus trope to use musically. So it becomes almost like an 80s Momus track where I'm trying to do, my take on Michel Legrand and, The Windmills of Your Mind and all this kind of stuff that was really big influence on me when I started listening to pop music. It becomes this almost like a self-parody, self-pastiche, based on AI listening to me and saying, this is what it sounds like. This is what we could do with a Momus track. We could make it much more kitschy and ballad-like. But in the end, I just bring it back. I say, no, you're not going that way. Let's bring it back to a song about cities and all the cities I've been in. And, there are lies in there. I mean, some of them are cities I lived in, like skating in Montreal, that's a real thing, or living in Athens and smelling the eucalyptus trees or whatever. But then also Buenos Aires, I never sat in Polish exile cafes writing porn. That's actually a description of Witold Gombrowicz, the Polish writer who was exiled in Buenos Aires from 1939 till 1963, I think, and very poor, but also living a very interesting, rather decadent life, experimenting with being gay and all the rest of it around the station, the Retiro station in Buenos Aires. So you have a kind of second-hand pseudo-memories when you've read writers and their diaries and their lives. I often find that fascinating, especially very confessional writers. So this one, obviously it got lots of nice comments from the Momus faithfuls, people saying, life absolutely seems most livable while awaiting a new Momus album. Beautiful, to be honest. VistaVision cool. I don't know what that means. What is VistaVision cool? I only hear classic Momus in this song unless AI has a classic Momus program, and why wouldn't it? To which I answered, well, in a sense it does. It's a song based on my song Life After 60s. But it was very falsetto, and I just made it mumbly as usual. Incredibly emotional and funny as always. Another great one. So that's that one. And the transparencies you see in the video are from the Albert Kahn collection, which I saw in Paris last year. And it's an amazing collection of photographs of people in various cultures around the world as they were about 100 years ago, before they'd lost their particularity and before global travel and global communication flattened the world culturally to the extent it has today. The next song was called Warpeace.
It's like what I want, I will not get. Wish I'd never down on my knees. Wish I'd seen the wood for the trees. Wish that you had heard my pleas. In your peace, in Warpeace, feel the heat. Na choke all night. In your peace, in Warpeace, feel the heat. Na choke all night.
And it's based on a track called Capsule, because it sounded to me like Nakata Capsule, Japanese pop. It's got this rap, some of which is in Korean. So these were my lyrics, but then they were also extrapolated by Udio.com into a Korean rap track. Well, I did a whole series of extrapolations and then made a compilation of them. So I didn't really change the lyrics. Once I improvised them in the bath and then had these extrapolations added by the machine, I just kept that, and so I'm singing in Korean things I don't even know what I'm saying. I should ask a Korean person what I'm actually saying, if it makes any sense. So it's a bit like that song Captivate on, the 2023 album that I put in some kind of nonsensical phrases in Korean using Google Translate.
사자굴로 데려오가세요.
In that case, I did know what they were saying. They were mostly saying, let's go feed the lions at the zoo or something like that. But this time, I don't know. I assume they're saying the same things in Korean that I'm saying in English in the lyrics. I hope so. I hope it's not like anti-North Korean messages or something. But it could be anything, This one, the video is quite interesting because I decided to have both voices, the female synthetic voice and my voice together. And so it's the most lazy kind of the tracks, in the sense that it's not really been altered as much as the other tracks. I wanted there to be a kind of tension or a kind of duet with person or persons unknown. I wasn't entirely sure about it when I made it. I thought it was maybe too silly. And then I went up at dawn, having worked up until 3 a.m. the night before. I got up at about 6 and went up to Treptower Park and started filming myself leaping about, doing dance moves for it, and looking a bit like David Bowie in the video. Would Bowie, the same way he embraced drum and bass back in 1996, 97, would he have embraced K-pop and AI this year? Who knows, maybe he would, if he were still with us. Let's see what the comments say about this one. Fewer and fewer comments now, because these are more recent. There's only 3. Gosh, says someone. I love this one, says someone else. That's a cool song, says someone. Some of these comments, it's almost like, where they now give AI comments as well. So you could comment on all my AI videos with AI comments that YouTube helpfully provides, like saying, cool music as always, thumbs up emoticon. These comments are all pre-prepared as well now. We're looking at a future where all the artificial music gets artificial reactions, because human beings won't have the attention for all the music being produced. It'll just be AI bots kind of giving thumbs ups and comments to AI bots producing the music. It'll be a completely closed circuit. So, and then the most recent song, Singapore.
Think back to the day we spent in Singapore. On the 50th floor, we were falling out of love, and you were telling me why we couldn't keep doing this anymore. I asked what, and you said us, babe. I said what? A lack of trust, babe. You said no, we just need to change, 'cause everything needs to be rearranged. If you can't get over you, find some new breakthrough. Here under Singapore roof, I can't really see the way.
Which I'm very happy with. It was originally a track called Zap, which again, 8th of July in the Bath, and Zap sounds like this. But I turned it into something much more low-key, a song about a couple in Singapore, and it's really kind of, for me, it's a song about a negative narcissism, the narcissism of injury, when you actually start to base your whole personality on what's gone wrong in your life. All the Elliot lines about Mrs. Porter and her daughter, which I put into the original dummy song, have gone, and it got replaced with these, a description of a couple in Singapore. I don't know, actually I do know where the Singapore idea came from. There's one bit in the rap that the AI singer does where she does say Singapore, and I thought, wow, it's a rap, an AI rap about Singapore in there. So I started to imagine a couple on the rooftop, these amazing spectacular rooftops you see in the video of Singapore, where I've had rooftop conversations in my past, breakup conversations on rooftops, when you're kind of looking out of your future or your past, and taking stock and wondering how to move on, whether to move on. And so it became like that, but also because I often think of this idea of negative narcissism, which is the paradox. That's when you take pride or you profit in disorder, injury, victimhood, and that leads to the paradox that to be cured is to lose your identity. So if I somehow step away from my disease, I am somehow no longer me, because I've invested so much negative narcissism in me as someone sick. I mean, you could apply this to lots of writers and Kafka and people like that. What would a healthy, muscular, strong Kafka have achieved? Their negative narcissism was their salvation in many cases, or Denton Welsh is one of my favorite writers of what is horribly more recently called sick lit. When you write about your sickness, and that becomes your theme. There is no theme, there's no subject anymore if you never had the sickness in the first place. And that's really kind of quite similar to the whole paradox of AI pop for me, which is that you lose yourself, you re-find yourself each time you lose yourself. So by embracing the anonymity and the kind of sheer mechanical alienation of this new way to generate pop songs, you can rediscover from a slightly different angle, and with a pleasant surprise of recognition, your own characteristic themes. 6 songs in. Thank you for listening.
Open University.
On to the day before. Let's go back to Singapore.
This is BBC Two. Now, Bob Harris introduces this week's edition of the Old Grey Whistle Test.